Listen, egghead, let me bring you up to date on what's been...
Excuse me. Is there food?
I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein!
And I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time.
Apparently he was in the military. Return a salute and see what he does.
You want me to salute that walking pile of pus? Salute my ass. In terms of my early days of acting, which started long before I met George Romero, I think all actors have this in common. I realized as a child when we boys would play Army, I don't know if you still play Army anymore, maybe they play terrorists now, but I knew that I died better than my friends when you'd shoot them with the invisible machine gun. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Around that same time, I became an altar boy in the church. I was a good Catholic schoolboy, and there was something about the spectacle and the costume and the separation of the audience and the clergy that all kind of drew me unknowingly to the theater. And I realized when I was in school, I was studying pre-law. And they had auditions for a Tennessee William play, and I auditioned, and then I figured I didn't want to be a lawyer. There were so many TV law shows on when I was a child. I wanted to be the guy playing the lawyer, which then drove me to my studies with the Grotowski in Poland, Joe Chaikin in America, the Method in New York, and I lived pretty much through the whole heyday of the experimental theater days of the 70s. And I ended up in Pittsburgh. I became a local actor in Pittsburgh. There were, like here, the provinces, there were 5 or 6 theaters. And George at the time was based in Pittsburgh and was very, very appreciative and knowledgeable of the local Pittsburgh acting scene. So whenever he cast a movie, he would go to New York, he would go to Los Angeles, but he would always have a session for the Pittsburgh actors. And I had done a small film called Effects, which is out on Dimensions now, which I think we shot it in '79 and didn't, because of litigation purposes, didn't get a release till a few years ago. And that was directed by one of George's collaborators, and Booba, who did a lot of editing for George, Tony Booba, was the sound man on that film. So I became part of the Pittsburgh film family. So when the casting call, my first meeting with George was for Dawn of the Dead. I went in and I read for the part of the helicopter pilot, David Emge.
Gotta find fuel.
I didn't get the part of the helicopter pilot, and that's how I got the loading dock scene, which in the American version is cut pretty substantially.
What's the problem, officer?
We caught your friends here stealing company gasoline.
What do you mean, friends?
They know Raj. They're running too.
Now, it'd be crazy to start shooting at one another, wouldn't it?
Sure would.
So I had one in the can for George. In fact, I'm one of the few actors that can say he's done 3 Romero movies, because George tends not to reuse people. He just doesn't. Then he did a wonderful overlooked movie, I think, that should definitely have the makings of a remake, Night Riders. I had a wonderful scene with Ed Harris, and had I been able to ride a motorcycle, I would have had a much bigger role. And then a few years later, now don't forget, Dawn had kind of made the cover, you know, was mentioned in Time magazine and the shopping mall, and you know, it made a lot of noise. So I maintained my activity in the theater scene in Pittsburgh, and then George held auditions for Day of the Dead and said, "I'd like you to come in and read for Rhodes." And I was, yeah. And so I read, and he said, "Wait, well, we're going to Los Angeles, and then we're going to New York, and we'll let you know in a couple of weeks." And in a couple of weeks, I got a phone call that I was Rhodes. The fascist military leader, it took a little bit of, at first read of the script and the character, he was a military leader in my mind. And as with all of George's movies, there usually ends up being less intentional than people think, but there's always a very strong political diatribe that's being formed in the movie. And the more I read the script, the more I understood that the basic conflict of the script was 3 very strong point of views coming into collision. One was the military point of view, which is shoot them in the head. I don't care. They're dead. Let's kill them.
Where does it say we should do any one thing but shoot the mothers in the head?
So we had Rhodes, the military, Logan, the medicine, scientific.
Bub's been responding so well lately, I've let him live.
And then Terry Alexander's role, the helicopter pilot.
People got different ideas concerning what they want out of life.
Which was more of that Haitian, Rastafarian, you know, Sada, the world, you know, with sitting in the Winnebago with her, and it's all going, it's madness.
You ain't never gonna figure it out.
So you had a kind of spiritual collision, too, and Rhodes's fascism. The more I read the script, was he probably didn't start out as a fascist, but as a real prick of a military man. But when the proverbial shit hit the fan down in the cave, I think that he was kind of forced into that position, but kind of enjoyed it. He would have shot Sarah.
What the fuck is wrong with you people? They're dead! They're fucking dead!
Yeah, he's a mean old son of a bitch. In terms of the political timing of Day of the Dead, it's kind of a twofold question. Politically, I'm very much to the left. I was all set to go to Canada if I didn't fail my draft physical. I've been chased and maced in Washington, D.C. I was at the Washington Monument when the police came in their motorcycles and chasing us and swinging their clubs like it was out of some Knight's Tale, running back to the buses, tear gas, throwing red paint on the Pentagon. When you're working on a George movie, what appears so obviously political after the fact, after viewing it, but when you're in the middle of the process of it, your mind is much more in the storytelling. I was worried about hitting my marks, getting my lines right. Were we going to be able to live up to the expectations that have been created in the mall in Dawn of the Dead? You know, we're the next generation now. We're up to the plate, as they say in baseball. And are we going to hit it out of the park or not?
Anybody else have any questions about the way things are gonna run around here from now on?
The whole sense of answering back, as you said, you pointed out Reaganomics and the brutal world strategy that was going on and being maintained at the time. It was not really, you know, an actress got a lot of work just making a living. A story I always love to tell about George, to show you the kind of humble gentleman that he is I'd wake up in the morning. We never saw any daylight when we shot the film. We were in the cave all day, 12, 16 hours a day, and then we were back at this large hotel called the Holodome, which was like a spaceship.
There it is. There it is.
You didn't have to leave for anything. We all got very sick being in the cave because of the dampness and the humidity. We had this doctor on set who was kind of a crazy, almost like the Beatles song Dr. Roberts. He was the feel-good guy. I mean, because as I said, people were going down, so B12 shots were, you know, here, and anti-pain medic, you know, people would just, I was out of work for 3 days. I was so sick. But I would wake up in the morning at about 5 o'clock, and I go down to breakfast, and know that the Teamster driver was going to be there to drive me to the set after I finished my breakfast, and you know. But I recall one very cold morning. I got up and I opened the curtains to my window, and I lit up a cigarette, was just looking out the window, and I see this figure in the parking lot scraping the ice off of the windshield of a car. And I look, and it's George. And I'm going, my God, this guy's directing all day. He's looking dailies at night. You know, you would think he would be the first person that would have the town car driver, you know, be just taking him to and from the set. And he's up at the crack of dawn, scraping, you know, something that one of his, the gopher or one of his runners or assistants should have been doing. He brings that quality with him to the set. He knows exactly what he wants, but he also is shrewd enough to know that he may find something out by taking a suggestion. At that time, we knew that George had submitted his final draft and that it was severely cut back for budgetary purposes. That's why I said that the containment and the claustrophobia of the mine, and the only really external shot. I mean, there were these brilliant scenes of zombie roundups, helicopters, you know, guys going through the Everglades, roping zombies, throwing them in trucks, herding them back. But the script, once it was cut, was really kept under wraps, the original one. I don't think I actually, it's been around and been available on the internet. I actually didn't get around to reading it until about 5 years ago. We basically knew that we should have had a lot more money and a lot more fun, and all of us perhaps would have gone to shoot in the Everglades as opposed to just being stuck in the mine. And that was basically all that we knew.
You work with what you got.
I read basically the new one. It was strictly Rhodes. It was strictly, in the new one, it was a military man from the get-go. I knew nothing about that Rhodes was originally more of a Dr. No figure, would have been a whole different, still ruthless and still maniacal, but, not really wearing, the military badge.
This ain't a goddamn field trip, people.
I had met Tom on a production of the Leather Stocking Tales, and he was, that was Indians, and he was doing the special effects, bow and arrow shots and musket shots and things like that. And then I had met him once or twice on the set and just in passing, very, very casual. And about a day after that, I was walking down the street and this car screeched its brakes and pulled right next to me, a little blue BMW. And this guy gets out of the car as though he's furious, and I'm going, wait a minute, I know this guy. But it's all happening very fast, and he runs to his trunk, and he takes his keys, and he opens up his trunk, and he pulls out an axe. And now I'm starting to see my life flash before my eyes, and as he's coming forward with the axe, I just, in the split second, I realized it was Tom Savini, and the axe, he came down full force on my head with the axe, but it was rubber. And, visually, Tom is, he's so skilled and he's so good, I really couldn't tell. And he just, I knew then that he was a madman.
Say goodbye, creep.
I got to be very, very good friends with him. I would go over to his house in Pittsburgh and drink wine with his father, who was a great man, talk about tomatoes in the garden and Italian food. But on the set, Tom, Greg Nicotero, all those guys, they were constantly prepping and working, but they had a huge laboratory in the mine. And that was the place where everybody hung out. In fact, they'd have to throw us out sometimes because, they'd have the music blaring and they're slopping blood and building rib cages. And, Tom, when Tom is working, he has a very good sense of relaxation. It's Savini land. We didn't improvise a lot in the sense of random improvisation, which you could just beat a scene to death. But we did speak about the dynamics of the scene quite a bit. And, we averaged maybe 8-10 takes, per scene, except for my death scene, which is a whole other story. That was a one shot. But for instance, I have two of the classic lines from the film came not in a sense out of an improv. The most famous one, "Choke on 'em when I die," was not in the film. And the day I came in for my death scene, I said, "George, I don't think that Captain Rhodes would go down without saying a word." And he said, "Joe, look, your legs are being torn apart. Your stomach's being ripped open. Your larynx is probably going to, how could you, I said, George, if they're worrying about that, I'm saying Captain Rhodes ain't going out without saying something. And he said, well, what could you possibly say? And I felt a little shy. I didn't want to say the line with any intention. So he was a big bear of a guy. He leans over and I said, I'm going to whisper in your ear. And I leaned in and I went, choke on him. And he leaned back and he was like, you got it.
Choke on him! Choke on him!
And the other one that I added was the term pussfuck. If you see the scene where Bub is chasing me down the hallway, I fall and I hit my head on the wall, and it really hurt. I mean, I was very, very angry that I had slipped it and bumped my head. I didn't know if I was going to have a bruise, but I couldn't cut it. And I was repeating the line, you fuck, and then I hit my head and I said, you pussfuck.
You pussfuck!
And a couple of seconds later, they cut the scene, and the sound guy said, excuse me, George. And George said, yeah. He goes, did he say pussfuck? And George said, yeah. And he said, I like it. I'm going to keep it.
You fuck! You pussfuck!
It took a good 8 hours. It's funny, the film was called Day of the Dead, but each main character's death scene took about a day, like Gary's death scene, but mine was the longest in terms of technical, so they saved it for the last day of shooting. And I walked in early in the morning, and they said, well, it's a good day to die. And I said, yeah. This is when I had the whole conversation with George while I was waiting for choke on him. And one of the PAs came up to me and said, I really advise that you don't drink any coffee or water or have anything to eat. And I said, that's a very strange request. And I said, why is that? She said, because you're going to be in a hole in the ground for about 6 to 8 hours. So they stripped me down into long johns, long underwear, and walked me over. And there was this false floor that was built, and there was a hole in the floor, and somebody had the bright idea they put a toilet seat over the hole. I put the toilet seat around my neck as though I was an astronaut crawling into this hole. So I literally slid into the hole, and so all that was showing of me was about from here up, and the rest, and they put a pillow underneath me, and I had my arms were free. And then they started with the appliances. They brought in the false set of legs, the pants, the false torso, and then they had to slip the shirt around that, and the torso was attached, and then there was a flap cavity in the false torso. And this is where things got, and now we're about already 3 hours into this, and now they bring out the guts that they have to fill the torso with. And apparently to this day, they don't know if somebody did it intentionally or if it was a mistake, but the power to the refrigerator had been shut off for the 10 days that they were in Florida. So when they opened up these pig guts, the smell just exploded in the room. I mean, it was like 20 homicide cases. But it was just, it was, I could still smell it to this day. It was the most revolting smell. And people were barfing, and we still had another 2 hours to go on the setup of the shot, and they're standing there. They finally got me a respirator mask, and there were people walking around spraying cologne, trying to just and all the special effect people were wearing masks, and because they had to pack this, because it was a one-shot thing. They had to pack this thing kind of anatomically correct and get the guts on and not get blood on the shirt. So, I mean, it was a very, very tedious, which took about another 2.5 hours of laying there in the most uncomfortable position in the world. I was starting to lose feeling in my arms and in my legs because of the pressure point. And, finally, after 6 hours, they got the thing all set, and they had certain pieces of meat to the side of me that couldn't be seen that were edible, because they couldn't have the actors playing the zombies, eating pig guts to begin with, let alone rancid pig guts. So they had 3 cameras rolling, and we knew we had one shot at it. And it was action, and the zombies they had already found me in the closet, and they just swooped down on me and one pair started, 3 or 4 actually started ripping me apart, and I'm breathing the pain, and so I'm inhaling all of this, and then they start pulling at my legs, and I'm watching my legs go down the hallway, and I see Bubs in the background, saluting me. And I know I have to deliver this line, choke on him, and I'm going, I'm gonna retch. I can't take it anymore. The smell is just, because now you're really inhaling and you're working, and bits of it are flying up, and blood is dripping down under the hole now into it. So I took a couple deep breaths, and I did that, and then choke on 'em, and I breathed again, choke on 'em, and I'm praying to hear cut. And as soon as they said cut, I think it's on one of Savini's scream greats, I just lost it. When they said cut, I just started heaving. Now, there was nothing in me. It was dry heaves, but they were worried that I was going to suffocate because I was in the hole. I couldn't breathe. So these 2 guys came over, and they just, grabbed me by the arms, pulled me up. I had no sensation in my legs, so I couldn't stand. And they're holding me, and I'm covered in blood and smell and guts, and I'm just retching. Horrible. I could still smell it. Terrible. Laurie was from Pittsburgh. I knew Laurie. Tim DeLeo was from Pittsburgh. I knew Tim. John was from Pittsburgh. I knew John. Richard Liberty came up from Florida. We got along famously. Gary Clark, the late Ralph Marrero, was killed in a car accident. There was something about the fact that we weren't on a set where you each had your own Winnebago. We were in this mine where they had almost set up a sort of barracks. We had cots where we could lay down if we got tired. But the thing is we spent all day together. It wasn't like you could go off. You couldn't leave. You had to take a golf cart and drive 1.5 miles. This is how big this underground mine was. There was a lake in there. You were warned not to wander off on your own because you could get lost. The camaraderie was wonderful, and I noticed that on Dawn and Night Riders too. A lot of it does have to do with the tone and the tempo that George sets on the set. He's very relaxed. There's no acting out or temper tantrums. There's not enough budget for temper tantrums anyway. But it was a good ensemble.
Let him go! Let him go! God damn it! Or I'll cut you in half.
Hook her up, will ya? Hook her!
Again, I think that that's a point that probably George intentionally did not start out to make, but you can, of course, you look at it in retrospect. But I think that adds again to the sense of immediacy of the situation, that these scientists were trying anything. I mean, there's that horrible scene where the zombie's head is completely off, and then the other scene where he takes the drill and puts it, that the desperate times call for desperate measures. Logan was a little bit excessive in terms of some of the experiments, but on the other hand, if you would, Rhodes would just say, "Well, the hell with that, kill them, put them in the oven. They're marked. They're vermin."
You better know I mean it too, people.
That wasn't very nice, That wasn't very nice at all.
I think basically it was, which is another thing that killed us in terms of the box office and how many theaters that they considered for distribution or the amount of money. That kind of visual gore. And then the use of profanity.
Fucking shit. Fucking shit. Fucking shit. Fucking shit. Fucking shit, motherfucker.
Were two strikes against it. I'm surprised it didn't get an X rating, but certainly we didn't feel good about it. It was, but I George isn't thinking about that when he's shooting, and I'm sure now if it came out today, it would be rated what? I don't know. It would be R, right? In a minute, in a heartbeat. I don't even know is it still considered unrated with no, it's now, but it's funny. My daughter is 15, and she still refuses to watch it. And I'm going, come on, well, it's your dad, honey. She goes, I hate zombie movies. I don't want to see it. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. It got a very, very limited screen release. The premiere and the reception was a bit of a letdown for all of us. At the time that it was made, the conventions really hadn't started, and the genre base was just kind of starting to snowball. But we disappeared. I mean, we literally disappeared for 18. Well, no, let's see, 84. Yeah, until about 2000 is when we started getting requests to do shows. Now, George has always said, I don't know if it still applies because he's got a couple of more pictures out under his belt, but he has always said, in terms of the trilogy, Night, Dawn, and Day, that it's his favorite. It's his favorite. So, you know, we feel a little bit, we were a little bit underrated, but the more people watched it, and I've had many fans say that to me. You know, the more I watch that, the more I realize that there's just so much going on in that movie, besides being a zombie movie.
What happened to this one?
It was too unruly. I couldn't handle it. I had to destroy it. We can still get information from it.
God, that's a painful question, because the next project I did after Day of the Dead was a movie for Ron Howard called Gung Ho that was shot in Pittsburgh. And I thought it would be a wise move. I was going to do it right after Day, but I knew I had Gung Ho coming up. I thought then it would be a wise move to LA. And I thought that I certainly would be gobbled up by the genre directors. And that wasn't the case. I don't know if managerially I got involved in something that was a huge rave for about 10 years called Murder Mystery Theater, dinner theater, and I did a impression of Lieutenant Columbo, and so I was the chief detective, and we were quite successful. We were doing, 4 or 5 shows a week. I did an episode of a show called Briscoe County, and Andrew Divoff, you know him from Wishmaster, was playing the main. It was a pirate. We were pirates in the Old West. And Bruce Campbell was the star of the show. He played Briscoe. So, and I kind of thought that after Day, I would at least be getting half the work that, let's say, Bruce Campbell got, or, Jeffrey Combs, who I know very well. But I do say, if there are any budding directors out there that want Captain Rhodes, you will know how to find me, because I have a lot of work left in me. My biggest heartbreak was that when I moved out in '86, I got a phone call from Bob Kurtzman, KNB Effects at that time. And he said, would you like to attach yourself to a project? I said, I'll attach myself to a fire hydrant. I don't care. And I said, what's the project? And he goes, it's a low budget, Joe. It's strictly low budget, but it is union. It's called From Dawn Till Dusk. And this really neat kid that works in a video store wrote it. And I said, what's his name? And he goes, Quentin Tarantino. And I said, another Italian. I said, good. This is, how careers just go to the left and go to the right. So he said, why don't you come over? I'm having a party. You'll get to meet him. I went over and we had the party, and he goes, Joe, this is Quentin. And Quentin was like, Joe Pilato, Captain Rhodes, I can't believe it. I have so many questions. I want this big jaw, and he just talking a mile a minute. And I said, that's the kid. He goes, yeah, he's a genius. He works in a video store. He knows everything there is. Well, we shot, and it's available on the internet, the trailer, and it looks beautiful. We shot in Panavision. And what really, really pisses me off is what was happening at the time. Quentin had used the startup money he received for payment of writing Dusk Till Dawn to start a little project called Reservoir Dogs. So we shot this beautiful trailer. And I realize as I look, because I come out in this black suit and I've got this gun, and they cut the line out, but I make the sign of the cross, and I cock the gun and I put it in my mouth, and then I turn and I go eyeball the camera and I go, "You want blood? You got blood." And there I am in the classic, even before Reservoir Dogs comes out, there's Joe Pilato in the black suit, the white shirt, and the black tie, that classic look that came out of Dawn Till Dusk, and or Dusk Till Dawn. Did I get it backwards again? I can't remember. But which is why Quentin put me in Pulp Fiction as Dean Martin. Has my career gone the way I thought it would have, or perhaps justifiably should have? Didn't happen. Didn't happen. And I'm a good bad guy. I mean, I'm a good bad guy. So, you know. You know, I haven't. Everybody that I talk to says it's terrible. I know it's a completely different story. I always tell the joke at conventions that the reason they cast Ving Rhames as Captain Rhodes is because they wanted somebody with a smaller penis. Which is just a kind of a joke on the fact that they would go from Captain Rhodes is this slight, wiry guy in the original to, this massive hulk of a guy in the remake. I haven't seen it. I know they must have spent some money on it because they hired Ving and they hired, what's her name from American Beauty? Contagion. Yeah, I know. I have not seen. It's very. I should, just out of common interest and not common courtesy, because none of those guys, they should have had at least, I think, the grace to have some of us from the original at least do a cameo, as they did with Ken and Scotty in the remake of Dawn. I mean, it would have been a nice touch for the fans, but they were not interested at all. But I will. I'll either run across it when I'm flipping, which is how I see most of my movies now. Is just flipping through cable.
And arrange your trips in the territorial.
But I should put it on my list of. But it'll just give me another reason to grouse, and I'm trying to stay positive and and just enjoy, and just appreciating being with the fans. Finally, hopefully, with being cast in Zebediah DeSoto's remake, Night of the Living Dead Origins, and having a major role in that, although it will be all computer, generated 3D, so it'll be my voice. I haven't even, we didn't even see storyboards yet on what we look like. We just have all the dialogue in the can. So, but Zebediah shot something called War Dog and shot a few commercials, and he's quite brilliant. And the script is very, 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 very close in terms of the storyline and the situation. It's just transferred to present day. And as opposed to being a farmhouse somewhere in Pennsylvania, it's a brownstone in New York, where they finally huddle together and decide whether to leave or not. But you have just massive you know, 747 going into a building because of a zombie outbreak on a plane. Times Square, people are just dropping left and right. So it's kind of it'll be on a very grand, almost Cloverfield kind of sensibility without the Saint Vitus dance camera. This last convention I did, there was a theater troupe there that it was one of the most brilliant things. They did a 45-minute puppet show version of Night of the Living Dead.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
And the zombies would open their mouth and they had these red ribbons that would shoot out of their mouth, or when a zombie got shot, the top of the puppet's head would open up and these starbursts would come out. And it just was because it was theatrically executed wonderfully, and it's almost, although George wouldn't agree financially, but it's almost natural that this story would come into the public domain. It would almost be like Aesop's fables, because it is, you know, it is such a fabulistic story.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
When I was in Milwaukee for this ZombieCon, they had a panel, and the title of the panel was, "Should Zombies Walk or Run?" And I was saying, I was saying, you know, my God, I said, we're confronting such major issues right now in debates at the moment about whether we should have nationalized health or not. And you guys, you crazy genre fans, are sitting around talking about if zombies should be walking or running. And I said, well, it's kind of like sex, isn't it? I mean, most times you like kind of to be kind of slow and a long journey, and sometimes you know you want that quickie. So 28 days later, they ran, it worked, you had your quickie, and I think George is a little bit more in terms of the, you know, the sexual act, that you want to just kind of enjoy every lumbering moment of that. And then somebody asked, they talk, well, what do you think the future? I said, well, I think somebody is going to come up with the idea of zombie porn soon, and that will give a whole new meaning to the expression "bite me." Oh, really? That I'll have to say that. I guess that's the safest unsafe sex a person could have would be with a zombie, or two zombies with each other. Eat me literally means eat me. You know, it's kind of. But I'll have to look that up. You know, we made something, as I said, that is gratefully being kept alive by a wonderfully caring and generous fan base. And they are getting older, and they are passing this. There's so many father-son combinations now that come to my tables. I mean, I don't literally sometimes believe it. Like whole families of people that are dressed like zombies, mother, father, kids, that are just into this, into this. And hopefully, hopefully that'll continue, and, I can continue to meet my fans, because they happen to like Captain Rhodes.
What else do you want?
You're giving me a mouthful of Greek salad. Choke on 'em. Choke on 'em.